Ladies and gentlemen, there is something they don't want you to know. A verse, a secret so potent that darkness itself quakes when it is spoken. You see, deception thrives in silence, in ignorance, in shadows. But this brings light. For centuries, whispers of fear and doubt have sought to bury the truth. The greatest trick the enemy ever played was convincing the world he does not exist. And yet, the moment you uncover this truth, this verse, you begin to see the strings, the manipulation, the battle that rages unseen. Then what happens when you speak it? Oh, you'll feel it. The weight shift. The air thicken. You'll notice the resistance, the unseen force that despises the sound of it. Because it is not just a verse, it is a weapon. A sword that slices through lies, a key that unlocks the chains wrapped so carefully around your soul. This is why the enemy fights so hard to keep you from it. Distractions, doubt, a world designed to make you forget, to make you blind, to make you deaf to the truth. But the moment you find it, the moment you dare to speak it, the grip of darkness weakens. The verse? Oh, it is simple, yet it carries the weight of eternity. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. James 4:7. Now you see, it is not just about acknowledging the battle. It is about taking authority. You were never meant to cower. You were never meant to be bound. The enemy does not fear those who simply know of the truth. He fears those who act upon it. So, I ask you, will you dare to wield it? Will you step into the light and claim what has always been yours? Because the moment you do, you will understand why the enemy worked so hard to keep it from you. But now you know. And knowledge is power. The greatest deception ever played upon humanity is the illusion that the battle does not exist. It is a masterstroke of misdirection, a carefully woven tapestry of distractions, comforts, and logical justifications that lull us into complacency. The war is not one of flesh and blood, but of unseen forces, an eternal struggle waged in the shadows of perception. You are in it, whether you acknowledge it or not. And the most dangerous battlefield is the one where the enemy convinces you that there is no war at all. This is why certain words, certain revelations, are hated by the adversary, not because they hold mere historical or literary value, but because they tear away the veil, because they force awareness. The moment you recognize the war, you are no longer just a passive participant, you become a potential warrior. And warriors, true warriors, are what the enemy fears most. Think about it. Why do distractions abound in the modern world? Why is everything designed to keep you occupied, entertained, numbed? If you were to strip it all away, the noise, the chaos, the relentless pursuit of temporary pleasure, what would remain? Silence, clarity, the ability to hear something beyond the static. The enemy thrives in disorder because disorder breeds blindness. A society lost in itself, endlessly chasing the next indulgence, does not ask questions. It does not seek truth. And if it does not seek truth, it will never find it. But then, there are those moments, brief, fleeting, yet powerful. Moments when something cuts through the illusion. A phrase, a verse, an insight so profound that it cannot be ignored. It lingers in the mind, unsettles the soul, stirs something long dormant. This is when resistance begins. This is when the enemy takes notice. Because awareness is the first step toward rebellion. And that is what he fears. Rebellion against his control. When you read this verse, when you truly see it, something shifts. A light flickers in the darkness. A realization dawns. The world is not as it seems. You are not as powerless as you have been led to believe. The battle is real, but so is your authority within it, and that is a truth the enemy cannot afford for you to embrace. Because once you do, you begin to see his fingerprints everywhere. You recognize the patterns, the tactics, the subtle manipulations designed to keep you shackled. You notice the way fear is used to control, how doubt is sown to cripple faith, how division is fostered to keep people from uniting against a common foe. These are not coincidences, they are strategies, and they have worked for centuries. But knowledge is dangerous. When you understand that the enemy exists, when you see that his greatest weapon is deception, you are no longer a bystander. You begin to question. You begin to resist. And resistance is the precursor to victory. You see, the power of this verse does not lie in the words alone. It lies in what they do to you. They awaken something. They force a confrontation, an inner reckoning. The moment you utter them, you are making a declaration. I know you are there. I see the game you play, and I will not be your pawn. The enemy despises this because he thrives in secrecy. He operates best when his presence is denied. When you refuse to acknowledge his influence, he has already won. But when you recognize the battle, when you call it out, he is weakened. He is exposed. And exposure is the beginning of his defeat. That is why he fights so desperately to keep you blind. That is why distractions flood your life, why doubt creeps into your mind, why the moment you reach for truth, obstacles appear in your path. Because if you were to truly grasp this reality, if you were to take up the weapons freely given to you, his reign over your life would be shattered. And so, the battle rages on. Not with swords or shields, not with fire or steel, but with knowledge and ignorance, with truth and deception, with awareness and blindness. The question is, where do you stand? Will you allow yourself to remain in the comfortable darkness, lulled into believing the battle does not exist, or will you dare to open your eyes, to read the words that strip away the illusion, to step into the light despite the fear that grips you? Because once you see the truth, once you truly understand it, there is no going back. The enemy knows this. He dreads it. And that is why he hates this verse with every fiber of his being. There are words that hold power beyond the ink that forms them, words that shape reality, that unlock understanding, that cut through the fog of deception like a blade through silk. Some words inspire, some words wound. And then there are words that the enemy himself fears, words that, if truly understood, unravel the very foundation of his carefully crafted illusions. Not all knowledge is welcomed in this world. Some truths are buried, hidden beneath layers of misdirection and doubt, not because they are irrelevant, but because they are dangerous. Not dangerous to those who seek them, but dangerous to those who wish to keep them hidden. The enemy does not fear ignorance, he thrives on it. What he fears is awareness, because awareness leads to understanding, and understanding leads to action. The greatest strongholds in this world are not built of stone or steel, but of lies. Invisible chains wrapped tighter than any iron could, yet the imprisoned seldom see them. They live their lives as though they are free, unaware that every step they take is within the confines of a prison built for their minds. They do not see the bars, they do not feel the weight of the shackles, and so they never seek to break them. But what happens when someone discovers the key? This is why certain scriptures, certain verses are not just resisted but outright despised by the enemy, because they are not simply words, they are revelations. They expose, they illuminate, they burn away the darkness that cloaks the truth. And there is nothing the enemy dreads more than being seen for what he truly is. The world is filled with distractions, endless noise designed to drown out the still, small voice that whispers truth. Everything is crafted to keep you looking outward, to keep you focused on the fleeting, the temporary, the meaningless. Why? Because the moment you look within, the moment you search for something beyond the surface, you begin to see the cracks in the illusion, and then you come across it. A verse, a phrase, a passage that lingers in your mind longer than it should. It stirs something in you, something ancient, something powerful. You may not understand it fully, not at first, but you feel it. And that feeling is dangerous, because it is the first step toward revelation. The enemy hates this. He despises when you read these words because he knows what happens next. First, the doubt creeps in. Not doubt in the scripture, but doubt in the lies you've been told. You begin to question. You begin to wonder. Could it be that there is more? Could it be that the reality you have accepted is only a fraction of the truth? And once the questions begin, the strongholds start to weaken. The fortress of deception, once unshakable, begins to crack. The chains, though still wrapped tightly, begin to feel lighter. The bars that once seemed invisible suddenly become painfully clear. The power of the forbidden knowledge is not just in what it reveals, it is in what it destroys. It dismantles the systems of control. It shatters the comfortable illusions that have kept people asleep. It forces confrontation, a reckoning between the lies of the enemy and the truth of the word. But here's the secret. The enemy has no real power over you. His influence is built entirely on deception, on convincing you that you are weak, that you are powerless, that you are alone. That is the great trick, the grand illusion. He cannot steal your strength. He can only make you believe you have none. He cannot trap you. He can only make you believe you were never free. And so, when you read these words, when you let them settle into your soul, when you allow them to awaken something in you that has been asleep for far too long, the enemy recoils. He sees the shift. He senses the change. Because now, you are not simply existing, you are aware. And awareness is the beginning of the end for him. This is why he will do everything in his power to keep you from reading, from understanding, from believing. He will flood your mind with distractions, fill your heart with doubt, whisper lies designed to make you question everything. Because if you were to truly grasp the power of these words, if you were to step fully into the truth they reveal, his dominion over you would crumble to dust. And so, the battle is not just about reading. It is about seeing, about knowing, about embracing the power of the truth despite the forces that work tirelessly to keep it hidden. The enemy does not fear those who are blind. He does not fear those who sleep. He fears those who awaken. And when you read these words, when you truly understand them, you do exactly that. There is something different about words that carry power. They are not merely spoken or written. They move. They stir. They shift the atmosphere, unsettling what was once stable. Some words provoke thought, others provoke fear. And then there are words that cause darkness itself to tremble. This is because words, when spoken with belief, with conviction, do more than communicate. They create. They shape reality. They tear down walls. They break chains. And the enemy knows this far too well. That is why he does not fear empty phrases or hollow speeches. He fears words that are filled with authority. Authority, that is the very thing he has worked so hard to make you forget. From the moment you entered this world, you were conditioned to believe that you are small, that you are powerless against the forces that shape your existence. The enemy has spent generations weaving a narrative that tells you to accept what is given, to live quietly, to obey without question. But the truth? The truth is that you were never meant to be powerless. You were never meant to be at the mercy of forces you cannot control. You were given power from the very beginning, and he has done everything in his ability to keep you from realizing it. Because the moment you understand the authority you have, everything changes. This is why he dreads this verse. Not because it is a mere statement of faith, but because it is an activation of power. It is a direct challenge to the chains he has placed upon you. It is not a request, not a plea. It is a command. When you read this verse and truly understand it, you are no longer a passive participant in your own life. You are no longer a victim, no longer a pawn. You are stepping into your identity as one who has been given the authority to speak, to resist, to stand, to drive out what does not belong. And that, above all else, terrifies him. Because power, once reclaimed, is not easily stolen again. The enemy's greatest strategy has always been deception. He does not need to chain you physically. He only needs to make you believe that you are chained. He does not need to steal your voice. He only needs to convince you that speaking is futile. His control is built entirely on illusion, and that illusion shatters the moment you take authority. And so, when you read this verse and declare it, when you resist him, he must flee, not because he wants to, not because he chooses to, but because he has no other choice. This is the power of divine authority. It is not dependent on feelings, on circumstances, or on worldly strength. It does not waver with fear, nor does it retreat in the face of resistance. It stands firm, unmoving, unbreakable. And when wielded correctly, it forces darkness to retreat. But here's the secret the enemy does not want you to know. He already knows he has lost. From the beginning, his defeat was sealed. He knows that his reign is temporary, that his power is borrowed, that his influence is fragile. That is why he fights so hard. That is why he seeks to exhaust you, to wear you down, to make you believe that you are losing a battle that has already been won. Because if you knew the truth, if you truly deeply understood it, you would never fear him again. You would walk with confidence, not timidity. You would speak with power, not hesitation. You would resist without doubt, knowing that your words, backed by divine authority, are an unshakable force. And this is why he despises this verse. It is a reminder of the power you have been given, a reminder that he is not invincible, a reminder that at the sound of true, unwavering resistance, he has no choice but to flee. So, the question is, do you believe it? Do you understand the weight of these words? Because if you do, then you will realize that fear no longer has a place in your life, that oppression, darkness, and deceit no longer have the hold they once did, that you are not merely surviving in this world, you are standing, resisting, and enforcing the authority that was always meant to be yours. And the moment you fully embrace that truth, the enemy will know his time is up. There is a veil that covers the eyes of the world, a thick and carefully woven illusion designed to keep people from seeing what lies beyond. It is not a physical veil, not something that can be touched or torn by human hands, but a barrier of perception, a blindness cultivated through deception. The most terrifying thing about this veil is that most people do not even realize it exists. They move through life believing they see everything, believing they understand reality as it is, unaware that they are walking through a carefully constructed illusion. The enemy is a master of disguise. His greatest strength is not brute force, not an open display of power, but subtlety. He does not storm through the gates demanding submission. He whispers, he suggests, he weaves lies so intricately into the fabric of existence that they feel like truth. He does not force people into chains. He convinces them that the chains were always there, that they belong, that freedom is a dream too distant to grasp. And so the world remains asleep, blind, comfortable in its ignorance. But then something happens. Someone stumbles upon a truth that does not fit within the illusion. A verse, a revelation, a moment of clarity that feels like a crack in the wall of deception. At first, it is unsettling. A single light in a world of shadows, flickering, faint but undeniable. And that is when the war begins. The enemy hates when this happens, because the veil can only remain intact as long as no one questions it. It can only hold as long as people remain content in their blindness. But the moment one person begins to see, truly see, the illusion weakens. The moment someone begins to ask questions, begins to seek truth, the enemy's grip starts to loosen. This is why resistance comes the moment truth is discovered. Doubt appears. Distractions multiply. The world suddenly seems louder, pulling attention in 1,000 directions. Anything to stop the unraveling, anything to keep the blindfold in place, because if that one person sees through the deception, they might show others. And if others see, the illusion cannot hold. The enemy's greatest fear is exposure. The truth, once known, is impossible to unsee. It is like waking up from a dream and realizing the dream was never real. Once the veil is lifted, nothing looks the same again. The enemy loses his ability to manipulate those who recognize his presence. His whispers no longer carry weight. His threats no longer paralyze. Because the moment you see him for what he is, you also see him for what he is not. He is not all-powerful. He is not invincible. He is not the unshakable force he pretends to be. His strength is borrowed. His dominion is an illusion. His power over people exists only as long as they believe in the false reality he has created. The moment they reject it, the moment they recognize the deception and step into the truth, his control is broken. This is why there is a battle over perception. If the enemy cannot keep you from discovering the truth, he will try to distort it. He will mix lies into it, twist it just enough to make it seem uncertain. He will make you question whether what you have seen is real or just your imagination. He will flood your mind with doubts, send opposition your way, do anything to make you turn back before the illusion collapses completely. But for those who press forward, for those who refuse to look away once their eyes are opened, there is no turning back. The world is no longer the same. The battle is no longer hidden. The enemy is no longer a distant concept, but a tangible force that can be resisted, and must be resisted. This is why he hates the lifting of the veil. It is why he despises those who seek truth, those who push past fear, those who refuse to be manipulated. Because the moment the deception is exposed, it loses its power. And the moment people walk in truth, they walk in freedom. The question then is this: will you dare to see? Will you allow the illusion to be shattered? Because once you do, you will never be the same again. There is something the enemy fears more than anything else. It is not wealth, nor influence, nor even strength. He has no concern for those who live their lives in distraction, chasing after things that have no eternal weight. He does not tremble before those who build their empires in the sand, nor does he fear those who remain trapped in the cycle of fear and doubt. What he fears is knowledge, true knowledge, not the kind that fills the mind with facts, but the kind that awakens the soul, the kind that breaks chains, the kind that turns a slave into a warrior. The enemy thrives in darkness, and knowledge is light. And light, once released, cannot be contained. This is why he fights so hard to keep you from knowing who you truly are. From the beginning, his strategy has been deception. He does not need to overpower you, he only needs to make you believe that you are powerless. If he can keep you blind to your own identity, if he can convince you that you are weak, unworthy, incapable, then he does not need chains. The prison exists within your mind. But what happens when that prison is shattered? When you read the words that tell you that you were created with purpose, that you were formed with power, that you were given authority greater than the darkness that seeks to control you, something shifts. The illusion begins to break. The enemy's grip begins to slip. Because knowledge is not passive, it demands action. Once you know, you cannot unknow. Once you see the truth, you cannot return to blindness. This is what he dreads. That you will awaken, that you will recognize who you are, that you will step into the authority that was always meant to be yours. The moment you do, the battle changes. No longer are you simply enduring, hoping to survive. You begin to fight, you begin to stand, you begin to push back against the forces that once held you captive. And the enemy has no defense against those who know their power. He cannot control those who have seen through his lies. He cannot deceive those who are rooted in truth. He cannot manipulate those who understand their authority. This is why he works so tirelessly to keep you distracted, to keep you afraid, to keep you uncertain. He knows that if you ever fully embrace the truth, his hold over your life is broken. He knows that when you speak with the authority given to you, when you reject his lies, when you stand firm against his attacks, he must flee. Not because of anything you have done, but because of the power that backs you. The enemy does not flee from words alone, he flees from authority. And authority is not found in mere belief, it is found in knowing. Knowing who you are, knowing the power you carry. Knowing that you are not a victim, not a pawn, not some fragile being at the mercy of unseen forces. You are a warrior. You are a force of resistance. You are one who is meant to conquer. And when you walk in that truth, the enemy has no choice but to retreat. This is why he hates when you read these words. This is why he fights so hard to keep you from understanding them. Because they are not just words. They are weapons. They are the key to the prison he has built around you. They are the light that shatters his darkness. So the question is not whether the battle is real. The question is whether you will fight. Will you step into the truth? Will you claim the power that has always been yours? Because if you do, the enemy will know. His time is up. The enemy's greatest weapon is deception, but truth is the key that shatters his control. Once you see through his lies and step into your truth authority, his grip is broken. He fears those who know their power, who resist, who stand firm. The battle is real, but victory is already won for those who walk in truth. The question is, will you awaken? Will you fight? Will you claim what is already yours? Because the moment you do, darkness trembles and the enemy flees.